All right, so here we go. So ViewZ video wall products. I'm going to start with the video wall because that's the one product that seems to be the most popular in the Latin America region. So with of our products, that is. So and the one that we do the most business with. So I think most people here are probably interested in our video wall products more than anything else. So let me start with that first. And some of the information, once again, is a little bit outdated, so I'm going to do my best to go with the most updated information and just improvise a little bit. So, okay, so skipping to the next slide. So let me just start with our video wall monitors. So this is the key component of the video wall products. ViewZ has long been a key player in the video wall market with esteemed line of video wall monitors that are very well regarded in the industry. So we're one of the better known names in the industry for video wall monitors. And we've basically refined our video wall products to have, or monitors to have as thin bezels as possible, and also obviously improving the performance and aesthetics of the product over the years. So the thing with the video wall monitors obviously is that the bezel width is very important, especially with the larger size walls, because the goal is to see as little gap between the monitors as possible to make everything very seamless. So that's pretty much the reason for the ultra thin bezel on these video monitors once again. So we're able to go down to 0.44 millimeters. That's literally thinner than like a piece of hair. So we do have different series that have different bezel widths. So I'm going to go over that information as well. But so let me go ahead and start with our UNBS line. So this is our most popular series, and we have two different sizes available. Pretty much most of our video projects, I would say, we end up doing with either of these two models. So 49 UNBS is obviously the 49-inch model, and 55 UNBS is the 55-inch model. So these have ultra narrow bezel of 1.2 millimeter bezel. So that's just basically taking one side and looking at it. There are going to be parts that are going to be a little bit thicker than 1.2 bezel, 1.2 millimeters in bezel width. There's, for instance, I think it's the bottom right side, where it's 1.5 millimeters. I'm sorry, it's 2.4 millimeters, 2.3. Yeah. So there are going to be parts when combined together. So that's usually called bezel to bezel or active to active, 3.5 millimeters combined. But individually, it gets as thin as 1.2 millimeters. So usually when specs are listed, they will list this number versus the active to active number or bezel to bezel number. But that's all kind of case by case. But this is probably the most important information as far as how the video wall monitor qualifies for certain stipulated specs for different projects and whatnot. So the important thing about this product is that it supports what's called daisy chaining. So what daisy chaining means is you're able to basically feed one source into the monitor, and then the monitor is able to basically connect to the next monitor via HDMI connection and then send over that signal. So basically, you can do what's called a daisy chaining once again, rather than what's called a home run configuration. So once again, if you have like a PC or something like that, that you're feeding a signal into the video wall, you can actually do it through one input of the monitor, and then that monitor basically relays it over to the next monitor. And you're able to do this up to, I believe, 10 to 12 monitors before there's some kind of a signal loss. But you can actually daisy chain these monitors together so they don't have to be home run, meaning you don't have to have multiple outputs that go out to individual monitors. So if you have one PC or something like that, this is a very ideal feature to have. So you don't have to have some kind of a computer or a processor that has multiple outputs, because that ends up being usually a lot more costly. Once again, when you daisy chain monitors, there is a limit to how many you could do. So after about, I would say, 10th monitor, you're probably gonna need to boost the signal by using some kind of a signal impedance booster. They have those kinds of devices. They're usually very affordable. You can go like on Amazon, for instance, and find those for really cheap most of the times. So, but you will need to keep that in mind when you're daisy chaining that after about the 10th monitor. You do need to boost the signal. Mullion compensation, I'm going to explain this a little bit later, but it does have that feature. It also has frame compensation. That's another feature that this has. I'm going to explain this in a separate section a little later too. Wide viewing angle, these monitors all have 178 by 178 viewing angles. So even if you're looking at it from the side, for instance, it doesn't really distort the picture. A lot of the times when you don't have wide viewing angle monitors, you're going to be basically looking at it from the center or right in front of it, and everything looks fine. But as soon as you see it off to the side or from up to the side, everything looks distorted. So that's something to keep in mind also. But these monitors do have 178 by 178 viewing degrees, so these are wide viewing angle monitors. High contrast ratio, 5,000 to 1. So these have a very good, basically color depth definition, especially with things like black and things like that, will be a lot deeper looking. It's not to the point where it's like a high definition TV. Video monitors are calibrated a little bit differently, but it is still going to be high contrast ratio at 5,000 to 1 compared to some of the other video monitors that are out there. It has a combination of digital and analog interfaces. Analog interfaces basically going to be like your VGA and things like that, which not a lot of people are using nowadays anyways, but you do have your HDMI, and most people prefer to use HDMI connection for these video monitors anyways. It also has the complementary serial control software, so you can actually do some basic RS-232 based controls. So if you want to basically power all these monitors on and off together when they're formed into a single video wall, that's something that you can do as well as changing. So basically, you can control all of these monitors collectively when they're connected through a serial connection. So, like for instance, you need to once again, turn the monitors on or off, or change the color settings. You can do that collectively on multiple monitors together through RS-232 connection, rather than having to do that individually with individual monitors. These are 1080p monitors. So I think that's a common question that comes up. These panels are 1080p, but we are able to feed 4K signal into these monitors. And also, if you have these 1080p monitors in a 2x2 configuration, that actually becomes a 4K resolution. So if you feed a 4K resolution into your video wall and you have a 2x2 video wall, when you blow up that image to that 2x2 video wall, it'll actually be 4K resolution if you are, once again, feeding a 4K signal into it. The important thing is you have to have a 4K signal to start out with. You can't just feed a 1080p signal into this and then upscale to 4K. It doesn't work like that. So, and lastly, all of our monitors are basically commercial grade monitors. So they're grade A panel monitors. Some panels are not commercial grade, which means they're not made to run 24/7. Their mean time between failure, or MTBF, is we tout 50,000 hours. The panels are actually rated for 50,000 hours, and the monitors themselves are rated for 30,000 hours. Some monitors are not rated for that, obviously, because they're not made to run 24/7. So the mean time between failure is a lot shorter for consumer grade monitors. And once again, these are available in 49 and 55 inches. Okay, let's jump to the next page. So this explains the daisy chain capability, this page. So UMBS video monitors have the unique ability to connect together and display the input sources via only one output from a video wall server or processor. So if you can have something like this, this is something that we actually offer. This is what we call a multiplexer or multi-viewer. But you can also have a PC or any kind of a server that basically has the video output capability. So a lot of the times, these kinds of servers will only have one video output. But once again, that's enough to basically feed the entire video wall using our video wall monitors that have this. So once again, you feed that HDMI signal into monitor 1, and then from there, monitor 1 will connect to monitor 2 via HDMI connection, and then that monitor will feed into basically monitor 3 and then monitor 4. So that's how the daisy chain thing works. So this actually gives you a visual reference on how that works. So once again, the advantage of doing this is if you only need to feed one input source into your video wall, you don't have anything else that you want to show, you just have something from just this one PC, then this is a really easy way of doing it. You don't need any other device in the middle that basically controls or dictates how the video wall image looks. You can just basically feed once again directly into the monitors to get the full size image like this. So thereby reducing the overall cost of the video wall design. So that's the real advantage, is that it's a cost saving thing basically. So once again, if you don't have a lot to show on the video wall, if you just have one input source to show, then this is a really good way of doing it. All right, so we also have the ENB series. I am going to mention over here that, going back to what I was mentioning earlier, so there has been some changes. So we don't have the 49s anymore, 49 panels for this series. Basically, the panels sometimes become no longer available in the marketplace. So that's where actually at the mercy of what's available in the marketplace for what panels are available, what size panels are available. So unfortunately for 49, this in this series is no longer available once again. So it's only 55 inches now. So this basically, this series, EMB series, so 55-inch monitors would be basically if you have a project that requires extremely narrow bezel width. So this is actually 0.9 millimeters bezel. So this is even thinner than the 1.2, obviously. And if you're in the video wall monitor world, the difference between 0.9 millimeters and 1.2 is actually pretty big. And there's a significant cost increase also because it's that much thinner. But these panels themselves are very expensive, and the bezel width has a lot to do with what that basically a video wall monitor and the panel cost is. These are all about aesthetics. So these panels are a lot more costly to make. Basically, that's what it comes down to. So yeah, these thin bezel panels are hard to manufacture. They're really fragile too, as well. So yeah, during the installation, it's something you have to be very careful not to damage these things because they could be damaged very easily. For instance, if you touch the panel and then if you press in any kind of a way with your thumb or something like that, it's almost like pressing on eggshells at times. You can actually crack the panel if you apply enough pressure. So and if you're seeing these other things in the corner, I do apologize. This is a screen share, so you are going to be seeing some of these things that pop up every once in a while. So yeah, you don't have to pay attention to that, obviously. All right, so let's see. High contrast ratio. These monitors, as EMB series features 3500 to 1 contrast ratio. These are also wide viewing angle panels, so 178 degrees by 178 degrees. Once again, wide viewing angle just allows for much wider viewing without the image being distorted, whether you're looking at it from the dead center or off to the side. So these also have digital and analog interfaces, HDMI, DVI, VGA, USB, and also composite connections. for AV, S video, and PC stereo in for audio connection, RCA for audio as well, and lastly RS-232. These also have the RS-232 connections. So these also have built-in image rotation feature to prevent from what's called pixel burn-in. So if you're showing stationary images, so even if you take something like this, for instance, this kind of an image where basically the frame of this will pretty much always stay the same, even though the pictures within these camera views are going to change, or any of this information will change. Some of these other things are going to always show on the monitor without changing. And eventually, over time, that will burn into your monitor. I'm sure you've heard about that before. So image rotation basically means it rotates the images, so entire image on the screen, very little. So sometimes you can't even really see with your naked eye whether it's moving or not. So, but it'll basically move it left, up, and then to the right, and then down, and it'll keep repeating that pattern over and over again. Once again, it's not going to be something that's totally noticeable, but some people can actually notice it. But yeah, that's basically to prevent it from pixels burning in, with everything always being in the same spot. Because yeah, the whole thing is if you just leave the images stationary and then the same spots keep showing the same image, it'll basically burn into that section. So that's what it's preventing basically. These are also commercial A-grade panels. All these monitors also have what's called power and source recovery. So not only will it power back up when there's some kind of a power outage and the power comes back on, not only will it turn back on, but it'll also go back to the source that it was showing. Meaning, if you were showing HDMI, it'll go back to showing HDMI rather than going back to default. So what that means, if you were showing something on HDMI and then the power goes out and the power comes back on, some monitors will just default back to, like for instance, DVI, because that's how it comes out of the factory. So you're going to have to manually change it back to HDMI once the power comes back on. You don't have to do that with our monitors. It'll go back to exactly the same source that you were showing before the power outage happened. So that's a very nice feature in case you do have issues with like power outage and things like that. These are also available. I'm sorry. So this is the outdated information. This is no longer available in 49 inches, only available in 55 inches. These do not have what's called daisy chain feature that UMBS models have. So these, you're not able to do daisy chaining, meaning only feed it one input source and then have that show across the entire video wall. You will need to do what's called the home run configuration, meaning you will have to have some kind of a processor or video wall processor or server that has multiple outputs, basically dedicated output per monitor. So that's the only way these monitors will work. We also have the EHB series. So yeah, once again, the 49-inch models have been discontinued. The panel is no longer available for this series as well. So we only have the 55-inch available. So so this is extreme narrow bezel. So if you need to go really narrow, so 0.9 millimeters once again, but also if you need to go high brightness. So ENB series, the brightness is 500 CD or 500 nits. This actually bumps it up to 700 nits. So this is actually a little bit of a brighter monitor. So you are going to have instances where, for instance, like if it's like a government spec or something like that, for a video project, a lot of the times you will see requirements for 700 nits versus 500 nits. So this is where this monitor comes in basically handy for that kind of an opportunity. So you're not always going to need this, and you are paying extra for not only the extreme narrow bezel width, but also the higher brightness. So this is actually higher in price than the EMB series because of the higher brightness. but this is not a requirement all the time. So this is not something that you're always going to need to uh, worry about. So a lot of the times, the 500 nits, also the thicker bezel width, checks out. So these are only really reserved for projects that absolutely require the thinnest bezel possible and also the highest brightness possible. Everything else is pretty much the same for EHB versus ENB series. Really, the only difference between the two series is the high brightness. And once again, we only have the 55-inch available. 49 is no longer available in this series because the panel is no longer available. So. Okay, now we're going to get into our processors. So that pretty much covered our entire video wall monitors offerings. We also have other monitors, which I'm going to go over in a little bit, that we use for video wall, but those are not really designated video wall monitors. They are actually multi-purpose monitors, but sometimes they do go in as video wall monitors if the customer doesn't really care about the bezel width. So I'm going to go over that in a little bit, but these are dedicated video wall products that we have right now. So I'm going to just focus on that for now. So now we're going to jump to the section where we go over our video wall processors. So let me go over our Pro Series video wall processors. So I'm going to, in the Pro Series, we have two different pros basically within the series. Pro ST series, and we also have what's called Pro Max series, Pro-MX. But I'm going to start with the Pro ST series. So Pro ST series is a FPGA design professional high performance image processing video wall controller. So what that means is basically this is a what's called a pluggable architecture. So this doesn't really have a Windows operating system or any kind of an operating system. This really doesn't run on operating system. So you just have basically a separate software that would sit on a separate PC that would connect to the controller via network to control it. But otherwise, it does not have a operating system once again. And the advantage of that is obviously you don't have to buy any kind of a Windows license to run this. But it's also a lot more stable. We noticed our prior design in our with our video processors, it was Windows, basically Windows OS, and it was running on Windows 7. Obviously, Windows 7 started getting really outdated for one thing, but also Windows in general is really unstable. You are going to have Windows issues. So a lot of the times when you have issues with the video wall, sometimes the Windows crashing or something like that can definitely cause that to happen. So you don't have anything like that to worry about. There's no operating system once again. So this runs a lot more stable. There's a very little resource that's reserved to really run this. Only thing that is focusing on is just basically running your video wall contents. It's not running an operating system or anything like that. So all of the resources, once again, are only dedicated to just running your video wall contents and nothing else, which makes this solution a lot more stable than something that has to run on operating system. So that is the advantage of having this kind of a system design. So the thing with the pluggable architecture is also that it's really you can basically create multiple arrays. So meaning you can go with many different kinds of configurations. You can start as little as 4 inputs and 4 outputs. So the way these things work, basically you have these cards that you insert into the chassis. So these, what you see over here, are individual cards. So right now in this chassis, in this particular chassis, we are literally only using 2 slots over here. So one's going to be your input and one's going to be your output. So this is like your basic 4x4 design, meaning 4 inputs and 4 outputs. So we have one input card over here that has 4 inputs and one output card that has 4 outputs. So inputs meaning you feed your input sources into over here, and outputs meaning these individually go out to your video wall monitors. So this is like the most basic configuration that you can have, the smallest number of inputs and outputs, 4 input, 4 output. Each card basically is 4 inputs and 4 outputs. And then you can go in those increments. And so in this particular chassis, we can go, for instance, 4 inputs and 4 outputs, or we can go, I'm sorry, 4 input cards and 4 output cards. That's what I meant. We can do 6 input cards and 2 output cards. You can, so yeah, you can do many different configurations as desire. So this is a 4U chassis. We also have 6U chassis, 9U chassis. The chassis sizes are different depending on what the configuration is. So if you have many cards that you have to basically stack, then we have different size chassis once again that have a different number of inputs and card slots. I'm sorry. So if you need to go with a large configuration, then we do have larger chassis available that accommodate for more card slots once again. But the important thing to remember is that each card once again is 4 inputs and 4 outputs. So let's see over here. So these will basically support, so the standard card will support 1080p signal into each input as well as the output. So yeah, the standard cards will basically support 1080p. We do have 4K cards available though. So if you do need to feed 4K and then display 4K, we do have that option available, but standard input cards and output cards will just be 1080p. And that seems to be still the most popular configuration. Most people are still running 1080p for video wall in most of the cases. This just goes over some of the specs information. So once again, yeah, there's pure hardware. This is a pure hardware structure. There's no operating system, which once again renders it way more stable than systems that are running on Windows and things like that. There are also serial controls available, so you can actually control these servers also through RS-232 as well. That information is not really necessary. Optional text and logo. It does come with a 3-year warranty. So, and once again, yeah, these are what's shown here is a 4x4 input 4 output configuration. We can actually go higher than that. So I mean, for instance, if you need to go 16 inputs, 16 outputs, we can build a server to be that. If we can also do 8 inputs, 16 outputs, once again, only thing to remember really is that the cars go in increments of 4, whether it's an input or output. So whatever configuration you need, we can basically make that happen. So if you have like 9 monitors, for instance, you are going to have to basically round it off to the closest number. So the closest we can match the 9 monitors, if you only need 9 outputs, obviously is 12, because once again, these cards go in increments of 4. So if you have an output card with 4 outputs, 2 of those will be 8. So if you need 9, you need 1 more and then yeah, you will need a 12 output server to support your 9 monitor 3x3 configuration video wall. So, but once again, the configurations are endless. So we can pretty much build it to be anything you want as far as what the configuration needs to be. We also have the Pro Mex servers. So these are going to be a little bit more advanced. So the cards are going to be a little bit more advanced than the Pro ST series cards. So it's little details that actually are kind of hard to explain, or kind of more on the technical side, but just to kind of explain briefly. For instance, if you have multiple layers that you need to show on a single monitor, meaning if you have a lot of overlaps from different input sources and you have 3 or 4 different layers, meaning there's overlaps of 3 or 4 different input sources that happen on the single monitor, the Pro Mex server and the cards will basically be able to support more number of layers than the Pro ST can. So if that's something that you need to keep in mind, then Pro Max is a better solution than the Pro ST solution. Also, Pro Max has capability to go really big as far as the configuration, even larger than Pro ST. So I mean, as you can see, we could build pretty heavy duty servers with many cards, depending on what the requirements are. And also, if you need something like redundant power supply, meaning, if you have a power supply that fails, then you have another power supply within the server that kicks right in to cover for the first primary power supply that fail, then this is probably the best option for you to do that with. ProST does not offer redundant power supply and things like that. So that's actually mentioned right here. And you do need a larger chassis to basically accommodate for that kind of stuff. You can't really do that with a 4U chassis. So that's another reason you need a larger chassis to do this kind of a configuration. But Pro Max is not always something that's going to be required for your projects. So ProST is a more cost-effective solution, and I would say 90% of the times, ProST servers do meet the requirements for your video project. So most of the times, I'm going to make the argument that that is a better choice than the Pro MX. But there are going to be times when, depending on what the RFQ is for the project, that they are going to require something like this, especially if it's something like redundant power supply and things like that. And if the configuration really needs to be ginormous, meaning, for instance, the maximum input and output we can do on the Pro Max is 128 inputs and 128 outputs. So that's a lot more than what ProST can handle. So those are the two biggest differentiators between the two different series. But once again, ProST, I believe, will meet most of your requirements for different video projects. This basically kind of goes, this is a typical system layout, especially in terms of networking and connectivity. So this is how everything usually connects. So we also have the capability to bring in IP inputs. So not physical inputs, but if you have, for instance, cameras that you do need to bring in from a different location by IP, meaning it's not a physical connection, but you do need to bring in these camera feeds directly from the cameras or your VMS, what have you. But if it doesn't need to come in via IP, not a hardware connection, then you do have that option. That's going to require a different card. So we do have IP cards, input cards also available to make that happen. So that's something that you will need to discuss with us. If your project requires that, then you will need to mention that to us and how many of those IP inputs you need so that we can configure these servers as necessary or accordingly. So when you have IP inputs necessary, IP input card will accommodate, each card will accommodate up to 8 IP inputs. So that could be 8 different IP cameras, for instance, or that could be separate VMS servers that are remotely located that you do need to bring in by IP or TCP/IP connection. But whatever the case, each IP card can accommodate up to 8 IP inputs. So once again, this would be the PC. I'm sorry, that's a different PC, I guess. This will be the PC right here that your CMS control or CMS software runs on. So once again, the CMS software is a software that controls all the functions on your video server, Pro server, and it would connect to your server over the network like this from a separate PC. So it would reside on a separate PC, and then it would connect to your server over the network. Once again, there's no Windows operating system or any kind of a OS on the server itself, so you cannot run it on the server itself. You will have to run it from a separate PC and then connect to it via TCP/IP once again. And these are all the other devices that you can connect to your video controller physically. So whether that's a server like this PC server through a DVI connection or HDMI, your Bluetooth DVD player, or another PC through VGA, what have you. These are all the different connections that can basically physically bring in different input sources like this. So, and your HDMI outputs will home run into individual video monitors like this. So right now it's showing 4 HDMI connections, and this is a 2x2 video, and then it's connecting to 4 separate monitors like this. So once again, this is a typical video wall system layout showing how the connectivity happens. We also have what's called MV series. So these are basically what we call multi-viewers. So these are basically more simplified um, video wall processors, if you will, with not as flexible as of an options as the Pro ST or Pro Max. So these are not custom configurable. That's the main difference. These are going to come with a finite number of inputs or specific number of inputs and outputs. So for instance, MB401, it does come with 4 inputs and 1 output. So this is once again something that if you need to feed, basic advantage of having something like this is obviously the cost. It's a lot cheaper than actually going with like a Pro ST or Pro MX type of a server. But if you have a very simple and limited application with your video wall, you only need to do very simple things, then maybe this is a better option, and it's once again a lot more cost effective than your Pro ST or Pro MX server. So MV41, once again, this is something that you would use if you have multiple inputs, meaning you have multiple input sources that you want to feed into your monitor, not just one, but you want to still use a daisy chain connection to minimize the cost. So this allows you to basically daisy chain into the monitors. We talked about daisy chain earlier, where all the monitors basically connect one into the other, but you do need to feed multiple input sources once again. So if you need to show 4 different things on your video wall monitor, but all the monitors need to be daisy chained rather than home run, then this is a cheaper way of doing it. You also have these preset buttons that you can click to bring up different viewing configuration. So whether it's just one image or 4 separate input sources, or so yeah, there are these pre-designated buttons that you can push to basically choose different viewing modes. But there's also software that can control it. So that would also basically sit on a separate PC, and then you would connect to your MV401 over the network and then control it that way. But you also have these hard buttons in front of the system, the hardware server itself, to control basic functionalities. But once again, this is for a very simple application if you need multiple inputs, but you just need to basically use your one output for daisy chaining with your daisy chain capable video wall monitors. And pretty much the same thing applies to MB802. So this server has 8 inputs and 2 outputs. So you can actually do 2 set of video walls if you need to. But basic idea remains the same. You have multiple inputs that you can feed into a bunch of monitors through daisy chain, basically. But in this case, it does have 2 different outputs. So you can potentially do this with 2 different video walls if you needed to. And it allows up to 8 different input sources to be shown. So once again, without going too long, these are going to be your more cost-effective video wall solutions if you have daisy chain monitors and you just have basic needs for video wall, and you don't exceed 4 inputs or 8 inputs capability for your video wall application. If you don't really exceed that, then yeah, these are going to be more cost-effective choices once again for your video wall server. So this is a typical diagram that shows the connectivity once again. So once again, you do have a separate PC that you do need to control these from. but you can also uh, yeah, and you have all these different devices that you can feed into the inputs to be shown on your video wall. So once again, even if you have the daisy chain sort of a configuration, you can, with these MV series servers, you can actually feed multiple input sources and still show it on multiple monitors that are bundled together in the video wall, but in a daisy chain mode. So these are some of the accessories that we have. So we also have different kinds of mounting solutions. Our VZ XMS, this is our video wall specific mount. So these monitors, mounts are basically designed specifically for video wall application. So these are spring loaded, meaning basically they pop out. They lock up and then they basically collapse. But then once you release the button, it'll pop out. So the reason why that's handy, if you have like a 3x3 configuration video wall, the monitor that's in the dead center is going to be basically landlocked, meaning you have all these other monitors surrounding it. There's no way to basically get to the back of the monitor unless you can pop it out. So it literally physically pushes it out and gives you access to the back of the monitor. That's the only way you're going to be able to get to the back of that video wall monitor. So if you need to basically change the connection, change out the HDMI cable or what have you, HDMI cable came undone and you need to replug it, that is the only way you can do something like that with a larger video wall configuration. So once again, spring loaded and it's made to pop out. And yeah, specifically designed for video wall applications. It also comes with a alignment tool. A lot of the times the problem is if these mounts are not aligned very well, you're going to have video wall monitors that don't really connect together in a seamless way, meaning you're going to have gap on the bottom or top because it's misaligned. So the alignment tool basically makes sure that these mounts are mounted correctly. So when you eventually mount the video monitors, you're not going to have any of those gaps. So this alignment tool comes, or it can be purchased, but if you buy like 4, because that's the minimum that you're going to need the alignment tool for in the 2x2 configuration, that is. The alignment tool will come basically complementary with these mounts, but otherwise it could also be purchased separately. But that is an option that is available with this XMS mounts. And depending on the size of your monitor, the alignment tool size will be different because these are going to be spaced apart differently, whether depending on whether it's a 49-inch monitor versus a 55-inch monitor. So we do have different alignment tool sizes depending on the size of the video monitors. VZ-1 TRX, these are HDMI to HDMI signal extender that connects via Cat5 or Cat6 in the middle. So you have a transceiver and the receiver. So if you have HDMI connection that needs to go longer than, say, 30 feet, that's usually the limit of your HDMI connection before it starts losing signal. So if you need to elongate your HDMI signal for whatever reason, because your video wall is in one room and your processor is in the other room and the distance is greater than 30 feet, then you are going to need something like this, so you can basically extend your range up to 394 feet. So you would have your input source connect to the transceiver over here via HDMI, and then from there you would run a Cat5 or Cat6 cable, and that can extend once again up to 394 feet. So that's a pretty long distance. And then on the other side, it would plug in, that Cat5 or Cat6 cable would plug into the receiver, and then on the other end, it would connect to the HDMI to your HDMI monitor for the video wall. So yeah, so this is something that if you need to basically extend your HDMI signal run, this is definitely something that you will need. And once again, that extended range is up to 394 feet. So that's pretty much all of the video wall products that we offer. We also have custom mounting solutions. This is not as important, but if you do have projects that require certain specific custom fabricated mounts, meaning for something like this, for instance, where it's basically curved, like in a triptych kind of fashion, then we can make a custom mount. So we have a shop that we work with basically that custom fabricates different um, mounts for us, depending on the custom projects that we or our customers have. So this is one of the larger walls that we did. I forget what the configuration is, but as you can see, this is a very large wall. So this is a security monitoring station. And this actually required a very specific custom mount, because this is a freestanding mount, meaning this is not standing on the wall or mounted on the wall, but it's a freestanding structure. So we had to build this. So we do have, once again, these kinds of solutions available. These are custom made, once again, exactly tailor made to your exact needs. So, and I'm just showing you some of the examples of video wall projects that we've had. So this is another security operation center. As you can see, these are all the operation stations or operators' desks, and then that's your actual video wall right there. That's another. So that's the one that we were looking at earlier, the Secure Watch 24. So this is a custom freestanding mount that we built for that project. And we can also make stuff like this if you need to basically have what's called custom cladding. So like a wood cladding like this. This is something that we can also build. So this is, I think this was a hotel lobby, if I remember correctly, or bank. I can't remember exactly right now, but yeah, we do have these kinds of mount options available with these custom claddings. Now, let me jump to the section. I mentioned that we also have some other monitors. So I'm going to mention our UHD. So here we go. This is our 4K monitors. So we do have requests from people that want to use 4K video wall monitors. The thing to remember with 4K video wall monitors is that unless you go up to like really high price range, like Rolls-Royce range, basically, you're not going to have 4K video wall monitors that are 4K that are thin bezel, because those panels are really expensive. So only like a handful of companies actually carry something like that, and it's out of the price range for most video wall projects. But we do have thick bezel versions of these monitors. So once again, the reason why those are expensive is because of the thin bezel width. The panels are extremely hard to build with thin bezel, so that's why they're really expensive. But if the bezel width is not a problem, then we do have these kinds of solutions. As you can see, the bezel is a lot thicker than your thin bezel video wall. But we have in UHD series 43-inch, 55-inch, and 65-inch available. These are 4K monitors once again. So if you desire a 4K video wall, but you don't really care about the bezel width once again, then this is another option that we offer for video wall monitors. The thing that's changed is that these no longer offer the quad viewing and different viewing modes. Basically, what happened is this chip is no longer available in the marketplace. The chip, semiconductor chip that basically enables these different viewing modes, and the quad mode, meaning you can actually feed 4 different input sources into the same monitor. This was a big selling point for this monitor, because you can, without having any kind of a processor, plug in 4 different input sources and then have it show in a quad mode like this. But that function is no longer available. So these, in order to do that, you are going to need some kind of a video wall processor now. And that's once again because we don't have that chip available in the marketplace anymore that allows these different viewing modes. The clear advantage, obviously, with the 4K monitor versus 1080p monitor is the resolution. So these are going to support 4K resolution, 3840 by 2160. So you do have this option as well with the video wall monitors. So that pretty much covers our entire video wall. Let me just go over some of the other things that we offer. I'm going to just we're already approaching 1 hour. So let me just spend a few more last minutes going over some of the other things that we have. So for instance, we do have some of these products that are no longer available. So HX series is now no longer available. This was phased out last year, basically. But we have interesting monitors. So we do everything that has everything to do with monitors on the commercial side. So we are a commercial grade monitor manufacturer. So large part of our business is video wall, but we also do these specific IP or very niche type of IP input and output monitors. So for instance, this is a IP input monitor. So this is what works as a remote viewing solution that has a built-in app that lets you basically remote view cameras. And we have it in 21.5 and 32 inches. So what this device really is, it's an Android device. So it works like any of your other Android devices, whether that's a tablet or your cell phone, but you can download and install apps. So you can run any apps that are Android supported without having to have a separate PC or anything like that. It's all self-included or self-inclusive with this monitor. So it's a one contraption kind of a solution where you don't need a separate PC to do these things with. So you can install VMS and NVR app of your choice to do remote viewing, but it also comes with a viewing app that comes from the factory that connects directly to cameras, and you can show up to 9 cameras simultaneously at 1080p resolution each at 30 frames. And that is a very popular app that gets used in conjunction with this monitor, and it comes free with this product once again. So you don't have to actually download it or anything. It comes preloaded already. So, and it says 8,000 IP cameras, but it actually supports now up to more than 10,000 different IP cameras. So it's a lot of different IP cameras it can actually connect or is recognized by this product. So once again, this is something that you would use if you have a monitoring station application with your video wall, but they also need some kind of a simple remote viewing solution in addition to the video wall on the operator's desk or something like that, for instance. Then we do have this 21.5 inch and 32 inch option available. So something like this is also available. Let me just go over one other product that we offer, which is our PVM. So this is the other big product that we offer. So this is our N series PVMs. We no longer have the analog versions available. So that's the other change from last year's presentation. So I'm just going to concentrate on the IP version. So yeah, once again, analog versions are no longer available. So these are only available as IP versions. So these are basically IP versions of public view monitors. Public view monitors meaning something that you see at like a supermarket or any kind of a retail before you enter the store. You see yourself entering the store. It's basically reminding you that you're being watched. And it also basically takes that image and then with the IP version, it basically transmits it over the network to be recorded to your NVR or VMS. So, and they are available in 2 different colors, black or white, and 3 different sizes. With the larger ones, 23, 27, and 32. We also have the smaller ones that are 10 inch. That is sort of a separate thing from the other larger PVMs. Most of the functionalities are the same. It's still an IP PVM, but those are typically used for like self-checkout and things like that, or more like an aisle at like a supermarket versus being like hung from a ceiling. So that's the big difference between the smaller size public view monitors versus the big size public view monitors. So I'm not going to go into a lot of details, but we also have these available. So if you have like a retail project or something like that. So that pretty much concludes the presentation. I believe this presentation PDF is available. Some of the information is outdated. So if I can get a list of all the attendees today, I will send the updated version as soon as that updated version is available. But that will be pretty much the conclusion of this presentation. Thank you very much for joining.